What?
I can't tell you. July 15th, 8 p.m. Both stood up, both hiding this. That's not a coincidence.
A luxury DC apartment evening. Warm lighting. Jane Rose stands holding a pill bottle. Her hands won't stop shaking. Across from her, Tearjerker stares at his own medication in his hand. His face goes pale. Wait, you too? She nods, can't speak. He laughs bitterly. All this time, we were both broken. Yeah, her voice cracks. And now you know, so what? So you leave. That's what happens when people find out. He moves closer. What if I told you I've been terrified you'd find mine first? She looks up at him, tears spilling over. July 15th, 8 p.m., both stood up. Both. She gestures at the pills. Both hiding this. That's not coincidence. Maybe perfect strangers were supposed to share the wrong secret. She freezes. There's more. His whole body tenses. What? I can't tell you. Jane? Because if I do, this ends. And her voice breaks completely. I just found you. He stares at her, the woman he's falling for, and realizes everything might be a lie. Lovies, welcome to a story that's about to wreck you in the best way. Tonight, we're diving between two worlds, beyond all borders, and we're serving you a tearjerker, a heartbreaker, and a game changer that'll have you questioning everything you thought you knew about love and secrets. Drop a comment right now. Where are you watching from? DC, Atlanta, New York, London? Let's see how far Jane Rose and Tearjerker's impossible journey travels. And lovies, if stories like this move your soul, super thanks and memberships help us keep creating these heartbreakers for you, but no pressure at all. Just having you here means everything. Your family. Now do not click away, because what's about to unfold? Two people who saved each other are about to discover that perfect strangers can share the wrong secret. The chemistry? Undeniable. The lies? Devastating. The choice they'll have to make? Impossible. Now let's step into that DC summer night and watch what happens when two broken people find each other and realize healing might not be enough. July 15th, 6 in the morning, Washington, D.C. The city was just beginning to wake, heat already pressing against windows even at this early hour. Tearjerker stood in his bathroom in DuPont Circle, staring at his reflection in the mirror above the sink. 32 years old, award-winning photojournalist, Pulitzer-nominated, and completely hollow inside. He opened the medicine cabinet, reached past the shaving cream and toothpaste to the orange pill bottle hidden in the back. Lorazepam, anti-anxiety medication, prescribed 3 months ago after he'd collapsed in Jordan. Panic attacks so severe the medics thought he was having a heart attack. He swallowed the pill dry, closed the cabinet, avoided looking at himself again. The apartment around him was sparse but filled with equipment he hadn't touched in half a year. Camera bags sat in the corner gathering dust. On the wall, a framed photograph stared at him like an accusation. Him and Yoonho in Syria, both younger, both smiling, both alive. Yoonho had been his best friend, his photography partner, the brother he chose. And Yoonho was dead because Tearjerker had let him sacrifice himself 4 years ago in Cambodia. Every morning, Tearjerker looked at that photo. Every morning, the guilt felt as fresh as the day Yoonho died in his arms. His phone buzzed on the counter. Reminder from Dr. Sarah Kim, his trauma therapist. Session today, 2 p.m. Don't cancel again. He'd canceled the last 3 sessions. Couldn't bring himself to sit in that office and talk about the nightmares anymore. Couldn't admit that 4 years later, he still heard the gunshots. Still saw Yoonho's blood. Still woke up gasping at 3 in the morning, convinced he was dying. Tearjerker got dressed, went through the motions of being alive without actually living. Across town in Adams Morgan, Jane Rose had been awake since 4 a.m. Not unusual. She hadn't slept through the night in 3 years. She stood in her pristine bathroom, expensive marble and perfect lighting, and opened her medicine cabinet. 3 orange bottles lined up like soldiers. Sertraline for depression, lorazepam for anxiety, trazodone so she could sleep without nightmares. She took her morning doses with practiced efficiency, caught her reflection, and practiced her smile. the one she'd wear to work, the one that said, "Everything's fine, I'm successful, I have it all together." Her penthouse was immaculate, expensive furniture, original art, not a single thing out of place. Also, not a single personal touch anywhere except for one photograph hidden in her nightstand drawer. Her family in Lagos before everything changed, before America, before Georgetown, before Julian, before the hospital, before her mother stopped speaking to her. The phone alarm went off. Therapy with Dr. Marcus Chen, 6 p.m. tonight. She never missed therapy, terrified of what would happen if she did. Terrified of ending up back on that bathroom floor with a bottle of pills in her hand and Amara screaming for an ambulance. Jane Rose got ready for work. Expensive suit like armor, hair perfect, walls firmly in place. 2 weeks earlier, her best friend Amara had literally grabbed Jane Rose's phone during happy hour at a bar near Capitol Hill. "What are you doing?" Jane Rose had protested. "Saving your life." Amara was scrolling, downloading something. "You're 29, brilliant, gorgeous, and you haven't been on a date in 3 years. This is an intervention. I don't need—" "Yes, you do." Amara's voice went soft, serious. "Jane, you're disappearing. I see it happening, and I'm not watching you fade again." Amara was the only person who knew about the breakdown, the only one who'd been there that night 3 years ago when Jane Rose couldn't see a reason to keep living, who'd called 911, who'd visited every day during the 3 weeks Jane Rose spent in inpatient psychiatric care. So Jane Rose let her download a line. Expensive dating app for DC professionals. Let her set up a profile. Let her swipe through options until Amara squealed. "Him, Brandon Cole, Capitol Hill staffer, Georgetown grad. Perfect for you." Jane Rose looked at the profile. Safe, strategic. Exactly the kind of man who would advance her career. Fine, one date. Amara had scheduled it before Jane Rose could change her mind. July 15th, 8 p.m., Founding Farmers. Meanwhile, Tearjerker's therapist, Dr. Kim, had made a similar suggestion during one of the sessions he hadn't canceled. "You're isolating," she'd said gently. "You need human connection. Start small. Try meeting someone." "I'm not ready for—" I didn't say relationship. I said connection. One coffee, one conversation with someone who doesn't know your name or your work. So Tearjerker had downloaded the same app, created a profile that said photographer, not Pulitzer-nominated photojournalist, documenting human suffering across 5 continents. Just a guy with a camera trying to figure out what came next. The app matched him with Rebecca Lynn, museum curator. Soft-spoken based on her profile, safe. Someone who wouldn't ask hard questions or demand things he couldn't give. July 15th, 8 p.m., Founding Farmers. That morning, Jane Rose walked into Congresswoman Diane Hartwell's office in the Rayburn Building for their weekly one-on-one meeting. Hartwell was in her second term, rising star, and Jane Rose had been her senior policy advisor for 5 years. This meeting was supposed to be routine. It wasn't. "I'm officially announcing my Senate run next week," Hartwell said, not looking up from her laptop. Jane Rose's heart jumped. "Congresswoman, that's incredible. And you're coming with me. Chief of Staff, youngest Black woman to ever hold that position in the Senate." Everything Jane Rose had worked for. Everything she'd sacrificed. The late nights, the missed therapy sessions she'd had to reschedule, the relationships she'd never pursued, all of it leading to this moment. "Thank you. I won't let you down." "I know you won't." Hartwell finally looked at her. "I'm counting on your loyalty, Jane, especially in the coming months." Something in her tone made Jane Rose pause, but she nodded. After the meeting, Jane Rose returned to her desk, tried to focus on briefing documents, but her mind kept wandering to tonight. The date, Brandon Cole. She didn't want to go, didn't want to pretend to be interested in someone when all she felt was tired. An hour later, she needed to drop off files in Hartwell's office. The Congresswoman wasn't there, but her laptop was. Open, screen unlocked. Jane Rose knew she should just close it and leave. That's what she meant to do. But an email was open on screen. Subject line, quarterly consultation payment. From Pharmatech Industries. Jane Rose's stomach dropped. She shouldn't read this. She knew she shouldn't. She read it anyway. Consulting payment $250,000 transferred as discussed. Looking forward to continued partnership on healthcare legislation. Jane Rose's hands went cold. She clicked through the email thread. Months of correspondence. Pharmatech paying Hartwell massive consulting fees. In exchange, Hartwell blocking the Mental Health Coverage Expansion Act. The same bill Jane Rose had been working on. The same bill that would make therapy and medication affordable for millions of Americans. People like her. Jane Rose closed the laptop carefully, walked back to her desk like nothing had happened, spent the rest of the day pretending everything was normal while her entire world tilted sideways. That afternoon, Tearjerker forced himself to pick up his camera for the first time in weeks, walked to the National Mall, tried to shoot tourists, monuments, anything. Every time he raised the viewfinder to his eye, he saw Junho's face, heard the gunshots, felt the weight of Junho's body going limp in his arms, while Tearjerker held pressure on wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. His hands started shaking, camera wobbling, the familiar tightness in his chest. Can't breathe, can't breathe. Tearjerker sat on a bench, head between his knees, doing the breathing exercises Dr. Kim taught him. 4 counts in, hold. 4 counts out. An elderly woman stopped. "Are you all right, young man?" He waved her off, humiliated. "I'm fine." Packed the camera away, accepted that he still wasn't ready. Maybe would never be ready again. His phone buzzed. Text from his editor at Global Lens, the publication that had nominated him for the Pulitzer. "Ukraine assignment still available. We need an answer by end of month. This is Pulitzer-level work, Tearjerker. Don't let it pass you by." 6 months embedded documenting the refugee crisis, everything he'd worked his entire career for, his redemption, his purpose. But it meant going back into a war zone, and he could barely function in peaceful Washington, D.C. Tearjerker ignored the text, started walking, ended up at Founding Farmers early because he had nowhere else to be, decided to wait at the bar. 7:50 p.m. Jane Rose in an Uber heading to the restaurant, trying to talk herself into going through with this. Her phone buzzed. Text from Brandon Cole. "Hey, so sorry. Work emergency came up. Have to cancel. Rain check?" She read it twice. The humiliation washed over her like cold water. Of course he canceled. Why wouldn't he? Why would anyone actually show up for someone like her? But she'd already told the Uber driver the destination. Too proud to turn around now. She'd go in, have one drink, salvage some dignity. 7:55 p.m. Tearjerker at the bar nursing whiskey he didn't really want. Phone buzzed. Rebecca Lynn. "Not feeling well tonight, so sorry. Can we reschedule?" He was relieved, actually. Wasn't ready for this, but also disappointed. The loneliness hit harder than he expected, sitting alone in a restaurant full of couples. He debated leaving, decided to finish his drink first. Jane Rose walked into Founding Farmers, head high, pretending she'd planned to have dinner alone all along. The hostess led her to a table. She ordered wine just to have something to do with her hands. 5 minutes later, the waiter brought whiskey instead. Jane Rose looked at the wrong drink and laughed. Actually laughed. First genuine laugh in weeks. Something about the absurdity, the perfect metaphor for her entire life. Even her drink order got stood up. Across the restaurant, Tearjerker noticed the laugh, turned, saw her. She was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. But more than that, something in her eyes looked as tired as his felt. The waiter realized the mistake, apologized, tried to take the whiskey back. "Wait," Tearjerker said, stood, walked over to her table with her wine glass. "I think this is yours, and you have mine." Jane Rose looked up at him, breath caught. He was devastatingly handsome. Sharp features, kind eyes. But those eyes looked haunted in a way she recognized. "Rough night?" she asked. "Got stood up. You?" "Same." She gestured at the empty chair across from her. "What are the odds?" "In D.C.? Pretty high, apparently." He smiled. Small, real. They exchanged drinks. He turned to go back to the bar. She heard herself say, "You could sit if you want. Misery loves company." Every instinct told him to run. Don't get close. Don't let anyone in. But something about her made him say, "Why not? I'm Tearjerker." Jane rose. He sat. They ordered food neither really wanted, talked carefully at first. She told him about her work, policy advisor, healthcare reform, dreams of changing systems that left people behind. Carefully omitted which congresswoman, the corruption she discovered that morning, the fact that she was one of the people who desperately needed the healthcare coverage her boss was blocking. He told her about photography, traveling, documenting human stories around the world, trying to figure out what came next. Carefully omitted Pulitzer nomination, Junho's death, the PTSD destroying him, the fact that he couldn't do his job anymore without having panic attacks. But as dinner progressed, the walls lowered. Not all the way, but enough. She mentioned Georgetown, growing up in Lagos, moving to America for college, the pressure to succeed, to make her mother's sacrifices worth it. He mentioned Seoul, his family's disappointment when he chose photography over law school, the guilt of always choosing his work over the people who loved him. They talked about loneliness in D.C., how everyone was so ambitious they forgot to be human, about being the only one who looked like them in rooms full of power, about sacrificing everything for careers that sometimes felt empty anyway. 3 hours passed like minutes. Food barely touched. Wine glasses refilled twice. Around 11 p.m., the restaurant started closing. Neither had noticed. They walked outside into the thick D.C. summer night, stood on the sidewalk, neither wanting it to end. This was, Jane Rose started. Unexpected, Tejan finished. I was going to say nice. That too. A moment hung between them. Attraction neither had been looking for, both terrified of. Can I see you again? He asked, voice uncertain. Every alarm in Jane Rose's head screamed no. Don't let anyone close, it only ends badly. They find out you're broken and they leave. But she heard herself say, yes. They exchanged numbers. He put her in an Uber. Before the door closed, she said, Tejan, thank you for making a terrible night better. Same, July 15th. We should remember this date. The night we both got stood up. The night we found each other instead. The Uber pulled away. Tejan stood on the sidewalk watching until the taillights disappeared. First genuine hope he'd felt since Junho died. Jane Rose returned to her apartment, couldn't stop smiling. Then reality crashed back. The emails, Hartwell's corruption, Pharmatech, the choice she was going to have to make. And Tejan. She'd already lied to him by omission. Hadn't mentioned the medication, the breakdown, the mother who wouldn't speak to her, the hospital, any of it. She stood in her bathroom staring at her pill bottles. He'll leave when he finds out. They always do. But some small part of her whispered, maybe not this one. Tejan got home feeling lighter than he had in months, fell asleep easily for the first time in weeks. The nightmare came anyway. Junho bleeding out in his arms. Little Hana asking, why didn't you save my daddy? The gunshots echoing forever. He woke at 3 a.m. gasping, covered in sweat, reached for his emergency medication, took it, stared at the ceiling. He'd liked her, really liked her, but he was broken and he'd already lied. Didn't tell her about Junho, the PTSD, the fact that he couldn't do his job anymore, that he was considering running to Ukraine because staying in one place meant facing everything he'd been avoiding. What happens when she finds out he's not the confident photographer he pretended to be, just a man haunted by ghosts? Next morning, his phone buzzed. Her. Coffee sometime? He stared at the text for 10 minutes. Finally typed, yes, when? Her. Today too soon? Him. Today works. Both hit send, both terrified, both hopeful. Neither knowing the secrets between them would eventually destroy everything. At Hartwell's office, the congresswoman's phone rang. Pharmatech Industries on the caller ID. The corruption wasn't going away. The choice was coming. And love wouldn't be enough to survive what was about to happen. The next morning, Jane Rose arrived at the small indie coffee shop in Georgetown 10 minutes early. She'd changed outfits 3 times, finally settling on casual but elegant, a cream-colored sweater with conservative neckline and tailored dark pants, different from the polished professional armor she wore to work. She checked her reflection in the coffee shop window, practiced her smile, hated that she had to practice. Taejin walked in right on time, saw her sitting at a corner table and felt something shift in his chest. She looked nervous. It made her more beautiful somehow. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Hey." They ordered coffee, sat in awkward silence for exactly 30 seconds. Then she laughed at something ridiculous. He couldn't even remember what, and the conversation flowed like they'd known each other for years. He asked about her work. She talked about healthcare policy with passion lighting up her face, how systems were broken, how people fell through cracks, how she wanted to fix things that left vulnerable people behind. She carefully didn't mention discovering yesterday that her boss was one of the people breaking those systems, that Congresswoman Hartwell was taking bribes to keep healthcare inaccessible. He talked about photography, about traveling to document human stories, about wanting to show people truth they'd otherwise ignore. He carefully didn't mention that he hadn't successfully taken a photograph in 6 months, that his camera sat gathering dust because every time he picked it up, he saw his dead best friend's face. 2 hours passed. Their coffee went cold. Neither noticed. He walked her toward her office afterward. Their hands brushed on the sidewalk. Electricity shot through both of them. "Tomorrow?" he asked. "Tomorrow," she agreed. The first week, they saw each other every day. Lunches squeezed between her meetings. Evening walks around the monuments when she got off work. He showed her DC through a photographer's eyes, pointing out angles and light she'd never noticed despite living there for years. She showed him the political heartbeat of the city, the power dynamics, the corruption and idealism intertwined. Wednesday night, they had dinner at a small Ethiopian restaurant, talked until the staff started stacking chairs around them. He told her about Seoul, about his family's disappointment when he chose photography over law school, how his mother still introduced him as "my son who takes pictures" with that particular tone of resignation. She told him about Lagos, about her mother working 3 jobs to send her to Georgetown, about the pressure of being the success story, the one who made it to America, the weight of all those sacrifices on her shoulders. Both danced carefully around the wounds they were hiding. Friday night, end of week 1, they walked along the Potomac. The summer air was thick and warm, couples everywhere, joggers, families. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. First physical contact beyond accidental brushes. Both felt the weight of it. They stopped at a bench overlooking the water, sat close but not touching. Just their hands intertwined between them. "I like you," he said simply. "I like you too," she whispered. "That scares me," he admitted. "Me too." They sat in the fear together, hands still linked, watching the water reflect city lights. Monday morning, week 2, Jane Rose sat in Hartwell's office for their weekly one-on-one. "I'm officially declaring my Senate run next week," Hartwell announced. "Press conference Friday. You'll be on stage with me." "Of course. And I'm making it official. You're my chief of staff when we win. Youngest black woman to ever hold this position in the Senate." Jane Rose should have been thrilled. This was everything. 5 years of work, late nights, sacrifices, all leading here. But all she could think about were those emails. Pharma tech, the bribes. "The mental health coverage expansion is coming up for vote again," Hartwell continued. "Next month." Jane Rose's stomach tightened. "I thought we were supporting it this time. The coverage would help so many people who can't afford." "We're blocking it." Hartwell's voice was ice. "Pharmatech funds our campaign. We don't bite the hand that feeds us." "But Congresswoman, people need this coverage. People who can't afford treatment, who are rationing medication." "Are you questioning my judgment?" Hartwell's eyes sharpened dangerously. Jane Rose backed down immediately. "No, ma'am." "Good. I need you focused. Senate run starts now. No distractions. No second guessing. Loyalty, Jane. That's what I'm counting on." Jane Rose left the office, went to the bathroom, stared at her reflection, pulled her pill bottles from her purse, the medication she could afford because she had good insurance, the same medication millions of Americans couldn't access because people like Hartwell blocked coverage expansion. She was one of the people this bill would help. and she was helping block it. The hypocrisy made her physically sick. That same afternoon, Taejin sat in his editor Marcus Chen's office at Global Lens. Marcus was Korean-American, mid-40s, had known Taejin since he started in journalism, had been there when Taejin won his first award, when Junho died, when Taejin came back from Cambodia destroyed. The Ukraine assignment, Marcus said. We need an answer. This is Pulitzer-level work, Taejin. 6 months embedded with refugees. Exactly what you do best. What he used to do best, before Junho, before the nightmares. I need more time. Marcus leaned forward. You've had 6 months. The panic attack in Jordan, I get it. Trauma is real. But you're the best we have. These stories need to be told. I know. Junho would want... Don't. Taejin's voice went sharp. Don't use Junho. Silence fell heavy between them. Marcus sighed. 2 weeks. Give me an answer in 2 weeks, or we're giving it to someone else. Taejin left, walked D.C. streets aimlessly, ended up at the Lincoln Memorial without meaning to. The place where he'd first kissed Jane Rose 3 days ago. His phone buzzed, text from her. Dinner tonight? I need to see you. He needed to see her too. Desperately. Yeah, 7? Perfect. That evening, they met at a nice restaurant in DuPont Circle. She arrived looking stressed. Tried to hide it, but couldn't quite manage. Taejin noticed immediately. Bad day? Just work stuff. My boss can be difficult. Want to talk about it? She wanted to, desperately wanted to tell him about the corruption, the emails, the choice she was facing between her career and her conscience. But she couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Not tonight. Tell me something good instead. He told her about a photo he'd taken that morning. First one in weeks that didn't trigger a panic attack. Just a simple shot of sunrise over the Potomac. That's wonderful, she said, meaning it. Small steps, he replied. They ate, talked. The conversation came easier now. Walls lowering bit by bit. Over dessert, she asked, why photography? What drew you to it? He was quiet for a moment. I wanted to show people truth, make them see what they'd rather ignore. Did it work? Sometimes. Sometimes people see the truth and still don't care. And the times it worked? Sometimes one photo changes everything, saves lives, changes policy, makes the suffering worth it. She thought about the email sitting in Hartwell's laptop. Evidence that could change everything, if she had the courage to expose it. He walked her home through the warm D.C. night. They reached her building, stood in the lobby. Close. Jane Rose, She kissed him before he could finish. Couldn't help herself. All the loneliness and fear and hope pouring into it. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper. 3 years of not being touched. 6 months of not feeling anything but pain. All of it flooding out. They broke apart, both breathing hard. I've wanted to do that all week, she whispered. Me too. Another kiss, slower this time. His hand in her hair, her fingers gripping his shirt. When they finally separated, she asked, come up? Every part of him wanted to say yes, but something held him back. I want to, but can we go slow? Relief washed over her face. Slow is good. Tomorrow? He asked. Always tomorrow, she smiled. He left. She went upstairs. Both lay awake thinking about the kiss, about the secrets, about falling too fast. Week 3 started with them inseparable. Mornings before work, evenings after, the entire weekend. Saturday, they visited the Smithsonian. She explained the politics behind every exhibit, how funding worked, which politicians championed which institutions, the power structures underneath everything. Sunday, they cooked together at his apartment. He taught her to make Korean japchae. She was terrible at it. They laughed until their sides hurt. The physical intimacy built slowly. Kisses got longer, touches more frequent, but both held back from going further, both carrying too many secrets to be that vulnerable yet. Wednesday evening, they were at her apartment watching a documentary about war photographers. His phone alarm went off. Medication, 8 p.m. He silenced it quickly, but she'd seen. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just a reminder. She wanted to ask what for, wanted to tell him about her own medication, but she couldn't without revealing everything else. The breakdown, the hospital, her mother's rejection. The lie sat between them, invisible but heavy. Friday afternoon, end of week 3, Tearjerker finally felt confident enough to take an assignment. Local publication needed coverage of a healthcare workers' protest at the Capitol, people demanding the mental health coverage expansion pass. He showed up with his camera. Felt good to be working again. The protesters were passionate, emotional, fighting for coverage that could save lives. Through his viewfinder, he saw Congresswoman Diane Hartwell on the Capitol steps. She was shaking hands with a man in an expensive suit. Tearjerker recognized him from research. Pharmatech CEO. Behind them, protesters held signs. Mental health matters. Pass the coverage expansion. Healthcare is a human right. The optics were terrible. A politician appearing to side with a pharmaceutical company while citizens begged for help. Tearjerker's journalistic instincts kicked in. This was the story. He captured the shot. Perfect composition. Damning juxtaposition. He zoomed in, saw something else in the frame. A briefcase between Hartwell and the Pharmatech CEO partially open, cash visible inside. His heart rate spiked. This wasn't just bad optics. This was evidence of bribery, corruption happening in real time. He took multiple shots, different angles, clear evidence. Didn't realize Jane Rose worked for Hartwell. Had no idea he'd just photographed the proof that would destroy the woman he was falling in love with. At that same moment, Jane Rose stood in Hartwell's office watching through the window. Saw her boss outside with the Pharmatech CEO. Saw the exchange. Panic flooded through her. Hartwell was being so blatant. Didn't even care about being seen anymore. She saw photographers in the crowd, rushed outside, tried to get to Hartwell, pull her back inside before this became a disaster. Too late. The exchange was done. Photos already taken. Hartwell saw Jane Rose, smiled coldly. Jane, perfect timing. Come meet our donors. Jane Rose had to shake hands with the Pharmatech CEO. Had to smile, play the part, all while cameras captured everything, including Tearjerker's camera. He didn't recognize her from this distance. Didn't know she was in his shots. That night, Tearjerker sat at home reviewing photos. The protest shots were powerful, emotional, good work. But the Hartwell Pharmatech exchange was explosive. Clear evidence of an inappropriate relationship between a politician and a pharmaceutical company during a healthcare vote. The briefcase, the cash, the timing. This was the kind of photo that ended careers, changed policy, won awards. Everything he'd worked for as a photojournalist. His redemption. Proof he could still do this work. His editor would give anything for this shot. But something nagged at him. He pulled up Hartwell's staff page, looked at senior advisors, saw Jane Rose's photo, her title, Senior Policy Advisor. His stomach dropped to his feet. The woman he was falling for worked for the corrupt politician he'd just exposed. He stared at the photos again, zoomed in on the background shots, found Jane Rose's face in several. She looked uncomfortable, stressed, but she was there, standing with Hartwell and Pharmatech. Does she know? Is she part of this? He texted her, "Can you come over? Need to talk about something." She was at her apartment, saw the text, anxiety spiked. "Everything okay? Just need to show you something." "Please." She arrived 20 minutes later, heart pounding, knowing something was wrong. Tearjerker sat at his desk, laptop open, expression unreadable. "What's wrong?" she asked. He turned the laptop toward her, showed her the photos from the protest, her face in several shots, standing beside Hartwell and the Pharmatech CEO. The briefcase visible, the cash, the evidence of everything she discovered weeks ago. "I didn't know you worked for Hartwell," he said quietly. She froze, staring at the proof of her complicity captured in perfect resolution. "Tearjerker, I can explain." "Do you know what this is?" He pointed at the briefcase, the cash. She couldn't speak. "Jane Rose, do you know your boss is taking bribes?" The question hung between them, heavy as a guillotine. She could tell the truth, admit she'd known for weeks, lose everything but keep her integrity. Or she could lie, protect herself, protect her career, protect the future Hartwell promised her. She made a choice she would regret for the rest of her life. That's not what this is. It's a campaign donation, completely legal. Tearjerker studied her face. Are you sure? I'm sure. Tearjerker, you can't publish these. It's misleading. You'll destroy her career over nothing. He wanted to believe her, loved her, trusted her. If I'm wrong, if this is actually corruption, it's not. I work for her. I would know. He stared at the photos for a long moment, his journalistic instincts screaming that something was wrong, that she was lying. But he loved her, and love made him stupid. He deleted them, all of them, the evidence, the corruption, the truth, gone. Okay, I trust you. Relief and guilt crushed her simultaneously. She just made him destroy evidence, made him complicit in covering up corruption, betrayed everything he believed in, and he had no idea. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. No secrets between us, right? She nodded against his chest, the lie burning in her throat like acid, both holding each other, both carrying medication bottles hidden in their bags, both lying about everything that mattered. In Hartwell's office, the congresswoman's phone rang. Pharmatech Industries. She answered with a smile. The corruption continued. The vote was coming, and the truth they were both hiding was about to destroy everything they'd built. 1 week passed, 7 days since Tearjerker deleted the photos, 7 days since Jane Rose lied to his face. On the surface, everything looked perfect. They were inseparable. Morning coffee before work, evening dinners, falling deeper every day. But the lie sat between them, invisible rot spreading through everything good. Jane Rose couldn't sleep, guilt eating her alive every time she looked at him, every time he smiled at her, every time he said he loved her work, her passion, her commitment to helping people. She'd convinced him to destroy evidence of corruption, made him complicit in her cowardice, made him betray everything he believed in as a journalist. And he had no idea. Tearjerker noticed she was distracted, asked if she was okay. She blamed work stress, more lies piling on lies. Meanwhile, Hartwell's Senate campaign officially launched. Press conference. Jane Rose on stage beside her, cameras everywhere. The announcement that Jane Rose would be chief of staff, youngest black woman to hold the position in Senate history. She smiled for the cameras, felt sick inside. Her best friend Amara pulled her aside after. You've been off for weeks. What's going on? Jane Rose wanted to confess everything, the corruption, the photos, the lies, but she couldn't. Just tired. The campaign is a lot. Amara's eyes narrowed with concern. Jane, you're not slipping again, are you? Like before? No, I'm fine. I'm taking my medication, going to therapy. Then what is it? Jane Rose couldn't answer, just hugged her friend and walked away. Wednesday evening, week 4, Tearjerker and Jane Rose were at her apartment cooking dinner together. She excused herself to shower, left her purse on the kitchen counter. Tearjerker's phone died. He called out, "Can I use your charger?" "Yeah, it's in my bag," she yelled from the bathroom. He opened her purse looking for the charger cable, found 3 orange pill bottles instead. Sertraline, lorazepam, trazodone. All prescribed to Jane Rose Adiemi, all current, all filled regularly within the last week. He stood frozen, staring at medication that mirrored his own. She was on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, sleep aids. All this time she'd been hiding it, just like he'd been hiding his. The shower shut off. She emerged wrapped in a towel, saw him holding her pill bottles. Her face went pale. Tearjerker, you're on medication. Not a question, a statement of fact. I can explain. For what? Depression? Anxiety? She was shaking, the secret she'd guarded for 3 years exposed in her own kitchen. Both, and I can't sleep without help. He set the bottles down gently on the counter. How long? 3 years. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me about yours? Her voice broke. I saw your alarm, Tejan. I've seen you silence medication reminders for weeks. I've watched you take pills you thought I didn't notice. They stared at each other, both exposed, both terrified. We're both hiding the same thing, he said quietly. Yeah. They moved to the couch, sat with appropriate distance between them. Both started crying before either could speak. Jane Rose told him about Julian, the pregnancy 3 years ago, the termination, the breakdown that followed. About standing in her bathroom with a bottle of pills, wanting everything to stop. About Amara finding her, calling an ambulance. 3 weeks in inpatient psychiatric care. About her mother flying from Nigeria, standing in that hospital room and saying, "You killed your child and now you want to kill yourself? I didn't sacrifice everything to raise a weak daughter. You've shamed this family." About her mother leaving, 3 years of silence since. About rebuilding herself piece by piece. Medication, therapy twice a week. The fear that everyone would leave when they found out she was broken. Taejin held her hand through it all, listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge. When she finished, he told her about Yoonho, about the assignment in Cambodia 4 years ago, about Junho asking him to come, about Mina begging him to stay, to choose their wedding over the work for once, about choosing the assignment anyway, about the trafficking ring discovering they were journalists, about Junho looking at him and saying, "Run, I'll hold them off, get the photos out, tell the story," about running while Junho stayed, about hearing the gunshots, about coming back to find Junho bleeding out, about holding his best friend while he died, about little Hana at the funeral asking, "Why didn't you save my daddy?" About 4 years of dangerous assignments, punishing himself, about the panic attack in Jordan, the PTSD he'd been ignoring, the nightmares every night, about not being able to pick up his camera without seeing Junho's blood. They cried together, two broken people finally seeing each other completely. "I love you," he said through tears. "Medication, breakdowns, all of it. I love you." "I love you too," she whispered. "PTSD, nightmares, everything. I love you." They held each other on her couch, both feeling lighter for the first time in years, both still hiding one massive secret each. She hadn't told him about the photos, about Hartwell's corruption, about lying to him. He hadn't told her about the Ukraine assignment, about Marcus's ultimatum, about the choice he had to make. "No more secrets," he said into her hair. She nodded against his chest, guilt crushing her. No more secrets. They fell asleep there, fully clothed, just holding each other. Two people who'd been alone too long. The next morning, they woke tangled together on her couch, morning light through the windows. Both exhausted from the emotional purge, but feeling closer than ever. They made coffee, sat on her balcony overlooking DC. "Last night," she started. "That was real," he finished. "Finally real. No more hiding?" "No more hiding." She wanted to tell him right then, about the photos, about everything. But fear closed her throat. He wanted to tell her about Ukraine, about leaving for 6 months, but he couldn't find the words. They kissed instead, gentle, honest, or so he thought. He left for his therapy appointment with Dr. Kim. She had a meeting with Hartwell, both walking into their separate disasters. Taejin sat in Dr. Kim's office, told her about Jane Rose, about the medication revelation, about feeling closer than ever. Dr. Kim smiled. "I'm proud of you. Vulnerability is courage. There's something else. The Ukraine assignment. Marcus needs an answer by tomorrow. And I don't know if I can do it. 6 months in a war zone when I can barely function here. Do you want to do it?" Long silence. "Yes, it's who I am, or who I was. I need to know if I can still do this work." "What about Jane Rose?" "I love her, but if I don't try this, I'll resent myself eventually. Resent her." "Have you told her?" "Not yet." "Taejin, you just committed to no more secrets. You need to tell her." He knew she was right, dreaded the conversation. At the same time, Jane Rose sat in Hartwell's office. The mental health coverage expansion vote is tomorrow, Hartwell said. We're blocking it. Jane Rose's stomach turned. Congresswoman, I really think we should reconsider. Reconsider what? Betraying our donors? Pharmatech has invested millions in this campaign. But the coverage would help millions of people who can't afford treatment. People like you? Hartwell's eyes went sharp as knives. Yes, Jane, I know about your medication. I know about the breakdown. I know everything about my staff. Jane Rose felt exposed, humiliated. That's why you're perfect for this job. You understand the system. You know how to play the game. I don't want to play this game anymore. Hartwell's expression hardened to stone. Then you're out. Chief of staff position goes to someone else. And I make sure no one in this city hires you again. You'll be blacklisted from every political office in D.C. You can't. I absolutely can. You have 24 hours. The vote happens tomorrow. After that, you're either with me or you're destroyed. Jane Rose left barely holding herself together. The next day, Thursday afternoon, Jane Rose stood in the Capitol gallery watching the vote happen in real time. Mental health coverage, expansion act on the floor. Hartwell voted no. 3 other congresspeople Pharmatech had paid off voted no. The bill failed by 3 votes. Jane Rose watched millions of people lose access to affordable mental health care, watched her own hypocrisy play out on C-SPAN. She left the Capitol, walked D.C. streets in a daze, ended up at the Lincoln Memorial without meaning to, sat on the steps where she'd first kissed Tearjerker, head in her hands. Her phone rang. Tearjerker. Hey, where are you? We were supposed to have dinner. She'd forgotten completely. I'm sorry. Work ran late. Everything okay? You sound off. Yeah, just tired. Can we do tomorrow instead? Of course. I love you. I love you too. She hung up, stared up at Abraham Lincoln. Honest Abe. She was anything but. Friday morning, Jane Rose woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Article in the Washington Gazette. Headline, Pharmatech's Political Puppets. How Big Pharma Bought Healthcare Votes. Someone had leaked the story. Not Tearjerker's photos. He deleted those. But someone else had evidence. Financial records. Email trails. Testimony from Pharmatech insiders. The article named Hartwell specifically, detailed the bribes, the block legislation, the millions in campaign donations in exchange for votes. Everything Jane Rose had known and hidden. Her phone rang. Hartwell, screaming. Did you leak this? Did you do this? No, I would never. Someone from my inner circle talked. Was it you? Congresswoman, I swear. You're done. Fired. Pack your desk. Security will escort you out in 1 hour. The line went dead. Jane Rose sat in her bed. Career destroyed. Everything she'd worked for gone in 30 seconds. But the truth was out. The coverage expansion would likely pass now with a new vote. She should feel relieved. Instead, she felt hollow. That same morning, Tearjerker read the article over coffee, saw Hartwell's name, realized this was exactly what he'd photographed weeks ago. The corruption was real. Jane Rose had lied to him. He searched online. Jane Rose Adiemi Diane Hartwell. Found her staff photo, her bio, senior policy advisor for 3 years. She knew everything. She'd worked for Hartwell through all of it. And she'd lied to his face, made him delete evidence that could have exposed this weeks earlier. The vote had happened yesterday. The coverage failed because he'd deleted those photos when she told him to. His hands shook. Coffee spilled across his table. Everything she'd told him about no more secrets, about being broken together, about loving each other, all lies. He showed up at her apartment an hour later. Article pulled up on his phone. She opened the door, eyes red from crying. Did you see? You lied to me. His voice was cold, controlled fury. Tearjerker, please. The photos I showed you, the ones you said were nothing. You lied. I can explain. You made me delete evidence of corruption, Evidence that could have exposed this weeks ago. The vote happened yesterday, Jane. The coverage expansion failed yesterday because I deleted those photos when you told me to. She was crying now. I was scared. I was going to lose everything. So you made me complicit in covering up corruption? Made me betray everything I believe in as a journalist? I was going to tell you. When? After how many more lies? We just had this whole conversation 2 days ago about no more secrets, about medication, about being broken together. And you were lying the entire time. That wasn't a lie. Everything I told you about Julian, about the breakdown, that was all true. But you left out the part where you're helping block mental health care coverage, the exact coverage that could help people like us, like you. The words hit like bullets. You're a hypocrite. You take medication you can afford while blocking millions from getting the same help, while voting against the exact bill that would make treatment accessible. I know. Don't you think I know that? It's been killing me. Not enough to tell the truth, apparently. Silence fell like a guillotine. She whispered, "What about you? What about Ukraine?" He froze. What? I heard you on the phone with your editor last week. 6 months embedded. When were you going to tell me about that? His jaw clenched. I was going to. When? Before or after you left? They stared at each other, both exposed, both guilty. We're both liars, she said quietly. Yeah, we are. He turned toward the door. Tearjerker, please, don't go. We can fix this. He stopped, didn't turn around. I don't think we can. You made me compromise everything I believe in, and I was going to leave you for 6 months without warning. We're not fixers, Jane. We're destroyers. I love you. I love you too. That's what makes this so much worse. He left. The door closed. Jane Rose collapsed on her floor. The same floor where she'd collapsed 3 years ago. But this time, Amara wasn't coming. No one was coming. She was alone with the consequences of her choices. 1 week passed. Jane Rose didn't leave her apartment. Amara brought groceries, begged her to eat, to talk, to go to therapy. I can't face Dr. Chen. I can't face anyone. Jane, you're scaring me. This is how it started last time. I'm taking my medication. I'm not suicidal. I'm just sad. Amara stayed anyway, slept on the couch, made sure she was okay. Tearjerker buried himself in preparation, told Marcus he'd take the Ukraine assignment, leaving in 2 weeks. Dr. Kim protested. You're running. This isn't healthy. I'm doing my job. That's what I should have been doing all along instead of playing house with someone who made me complicit in corruption. He packed equipment, booked flights, prepared to leave. Both broken, both alone, both destroyed by secrets. Week 5, Jane Rose forced herself to go to therapy. Walked into Dr. Chen's office looking hollow. I destroyed everything. My career, the man I love, myself. Dr. Chen listened, then asked, Did you leak the story? No. But you're glad it came out? Long pause. Yes. Why? Because it was the truth, and truth matters more than my career. That's growth, Jane Rose. It doesn't feel like growth, it feels like failure. Sometimes they're the same thing. She left therapy, walked DC streets aimlessly. Her phone buzzed, unknown number, text message. The article that exposed Hartwell, it came from someone inside Pharmatech who got sick of the corruption. Not from your boyfriend's deleted photos. He was never the key. The truth was always going to come out. You just had to decide which side you'd be on when it did. She stared at the message. All this time, she thought Tearjerker's photos were the only evidence, that her lie protected something. But the truth was bigger than both of them. Always had been. She'd lost him for nothing, or everything, depending on how you looked at it. Meanwhile, Tearjerker boarded a plane at Dulles. Destination, Ukraine. Running from love toward war. His camera bag beside him. Finally ready to shoot again. But at what cost? 3 weeks later, late August. Tearjerker had been in Ukraine for 3 weeks. embedded with refugee families fleeing the conflict zones, living in tents, documenting stories that mattered, stories of survival, loss, impossible choices. His camera worked again. He shot daily, technically perfect photographs that his editor praised. But every night, lying in his tent listening to distant artillery, he stared at his phone. Jane Rose's contact staring back at him. Hadn't called, hadn't texted, but hadn't deleted her number either. Marcus noticed something was off when Tearjerker sent the latest batch of photos. Called him via satellite phone. These are good, Tearjerker, technically flawless, but they're missing something. What? Heart. Your best work always had heart, connection. These feel distant, like you're documenting but not actually seeing the people. Tearjerker knew Marcus was right, knew what was missing. Her. In Washington, D.C., Jane Rose had been living in limbo for 3 weeks. Amara had moved in temporarily after the breakup, making sure Jane Rose ate, went to therapy, took her medication. She wasn't suicidal, wasn't collapsing like 3 years ago, but she wasn't living either, just existing, going through motions. No job, no career prospects. Hartwell had made good on her threat. Jane Rose was blacklisted across D.C. political circles. The woman who was going to be the youngest Black female chief of staff in Senate history was now unemployed and unhireable. Her days blurred together. Therapy sessions with Dr. Chen, long walks around D.C., sitting on her couch staring at nothing. Thursday afternoon, 4th week after the breakup, Jane Rose sat in Dr. Chen's office for their weekly session. I destroyed everything, she said, voice flat. My career, the man I love. For what? For the truth, Dr. Chen said quietly. The truth cost me everything. Did it? Or did lying cost you everything? Jane Rose stopped, really thought about that. The article was going to come out regardless. That text message told you that. Your boyfriend's photos weren't the only evidence. The truth was inevitable. Then why does it feel like I lost him for nothing? Because you're focusing on the wrong question. It's not about the photos. It's about who you chose to be when faced with the truth. I chose wrong. You chose fear first, then you chose honesty when it mattered. That's not wrong. That's human. Long silence. Jane Rose processing. He's in Ukraine doing the work he's supposed to be doing, and I'm here with nothing. You have yourself. For the first time in 3 years, you chose integrity over ambition. That's not nothing, Jane Rose. Something small shifted in her chest. The next day, Jane Rose was home trying to figure out what to do with her life when her phone rang. Unknown DC number. She almost didn't answer, then did. Is this Jane Rose Adiemi? Yes, who's this? Senator Patricia Williams. Do you have a moment? Jane Rose's heart stopped. Williams was a progressive senator, champion of healthcare reform. Everything Hartwell pretended to be. Of course, Senator. I read about what happened with Hartwell. I also read the leaked emails. You were named as her senior policy advisor. Here it comes, Jane Rose thought, the final nail in the coffin. Senator, I want you to know I didn't leak. I know you didn't. I also know you were the only staffer who pushed back on blocking the mental health coverage expansion. I have sources. Jane Rose couldn't breathe. The question is, do you still believe in that coverage? More than anything. Good, because we're bringing it back for a vote next month. And I need someone who understands the policy and why it matters. Someone who's lived it. Tears filled Jane Rose's eyes. Senator, are you offering me a position? Senior healthcare policy advisor. My office, if you want it. Why would you hire me after everything? Because you lost your career for refusing to compromise your integrity. That's exactly who I need on my team. People who choose right over easy. Jane Rose was crying openly. Yes, I want it. Good. Start Monday. We have work to do. The line went dead. Jane Rose sat in her apartment, Amara staring at her from the kitchen. What just happened? I have a job, working for Senator Williams on the healthcare expansion. Amara screamed, rushed over, hugged her, both crying. For the first time in weeks, Jane Rose felt something like hope. That same week in Ukraine, Tearjerker was at the border with a refugee family, mother and two young children, fleeing their destroyed home with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The mother's face was devastating, lost in fear and determination all at once. She was trying so hard to be strong for her kids. Tearjerker raised his camera, framed the shot perfectly, technically flawless composition. But he couldn't take it. Lowered the camera, hands shaking. Saw Jane Rose's face instead, the day he left, broken on her apartment floor, destroyed by his words. The mother noticed. "Are you okay?" He laughed bitterly. "I should be asking you that. You look sad, like you lost something important." "I did. Someone. I loved her, and I left her when she needed me." The mother's expression softened. "Did she do something wrong?" "She lied to protect herself, and I couldn't forgive her for it." "And you? Have you never lied to protect yourself?" The question hit him like artillery fire. He thought about the Ukraine assignment, accepting it without telling Jane Rose, planning to leave for 6 months without warning her. About hiding his PTSD, his medication, his nightmares, for weeks while they fell in love. About running to a war zone instead of staying to fight for their relationship. "I'm a hypocrite," he whispered. The mother touched his arm gently. "Then go home. Fix it. Don't be like me, running because you have no choice. You still have a choice." He stared at this woman who'd lost everything. Her home, her country, maybe her husband based on the ring she still wore. And she was telling him to fight for what he still had. That night, Tearjerker emailed Marcus. "I need to come home. Now." Jane Rose's first week working for Senator Williams was transformative. The office was different from Hartwell's. Progressive, passionate. People who actually cared about policy over politics, who wanted to help people instead of enriching themselves. She worked directly on redrafting the Mental Health Coverage Expansion Act, testified before committees, met with mental health advocates, heard stories from people who desperately needed this coverage. One woman told her, "I can't afford my medication anymore. I've been rationing it for 3 months, skipping doses. I can feel myself getting worse. This bill would save my life." Jane Rose thought about her own pill bottles, the privilege of affording treatment, of having insurance that covered therapy. "We're going to pass it," she promised. "I won't stop until we do." Senator Williams pulled her aside after. "You're good at this, Jane Rose. Really good. You connect with people." "Why?" "Because I know what it's like to need help and barely afford it. To be one paycheck away from not being able to function." Williams nodded. "Your story matters. Consider going public with it. Personal testimony is powerful." Jane Rose froze. "I don't know if I'm ready." Think about it. Sometimes the most powerful advocacy is lived experience. 6 weeks after he left, Tearjerker landed at Dulles Airport, exhausted, hadn't slept in 30 hours. Checked his phone, saw DC news notifications. Senator Williams pushes mental health coverage expansion. Clicked the article, saw Jane Rose's name, her new title, Senior Healthcare Policy Advisor. His heart stopped. She got a new job, working for Senator Williams, fighting for the exact legislation Hartwell had blocked. While he was running away, she stayed and fought. He read every article, saw her quoted, professional and passionate in everything he'd fallen in love with. Wanted to call her, didn't know if he had the right. Went home, unpacked, stared at his phone for an hour. Finally texted, "I'm back in DC. Can we talk?" Stared at the screen, waiting. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. When? Tomorrow. Lincoln Memorial, 7 p.m., where they first kissed, where everything started. Okay. The next evening, Jane Rose arrived first, nervous. Hadn't seen him in 6 weeks. Tearjerker walked up looking thinner, tired, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. They stood awkwardly, neither knowing how to start. "You look good," he said. "You look exhausted." Small smile. "Ukraine will do that." They sat on the memorial steps, appropriate distance between them. I heard about Senator Williams. Congratulations. Thank you. It's good work. Important. The mental health coverage expansion. That's what Harwell blocked. Yeah, we're bringing it back for a vote. I think we can pass it this time. That's amazing, Jane. Really? Silence hung heavy. She broke first. Why did you come back? Ukraine was supposed to be 6 months. I couldn't do it. The work. Every photo felt empty. Why? Because all I could think about was you. About how I left you broken and alone. About calling you a hypocrite when I was doing the exact same thing. Her eyes filled. Tearjerker, I'm sorry for leaving, for not fighting for us, for running instead of staying. I'm sorry too, for lying about the photos, for making you complicit, for choosing my career over honesty. They were both crying. I love you, he said. I never stopped, even angry, even gone. I love you. I love you too, but loving each other isn't enough, is it? We hurt each other so badly. What if we tried again, differently, no secrets, total honesty, even when it's hard? She wanted to say yes desperately, but fear held her back. What about your work, Ukraine? I told Marcus I need time to heal, to figure out if I can do this work without destroying myself or the people I love. And can you? I don't know, but I know running from you didn't fix anything. She looked at him. This man she loved, who hurt her and who she hurt back. I'm scared. What if we just destroy each other again? We probably will sometimes. We're both broken. But maybe broken people can love each other anyway. Silence. DC summer night warm around them. I'm testifying before Congress next week, she said finally, about the mental health coverage expansion. You're going public? Senator Williams thinks it will help. Personal testimony, showing why coverage matters. That's terrifying. Yeah, but it's right. I've spent 3 years hiding. I'm done hiding. I'm proud of you. She took his hand. First contact in 6 weeks. Come with me to the testimony. Are you sure? I'm sure. I need you there. He squeezed her hand. Okay. She turned to face him fully. I want to try again, but different. Like you said, no secrets. Therapy for both of us. And if it gets hard, we don't run. We fight. I can do that. Even when my depression gets bad, when I can't get out of bed. Even then. And you'll be there when I have nightmares? When PTSD makes me impossible? Even then. They kissed. Gentle. Careful. Two broken people choosing each other again. Not fixed, not healed, but trying. 2 weeks later, Jane Rose sat at a table in a congressional hearing room. Senator Williams beside her. Tearjerker in the gallery watching. She was terrified, hands shaking as she held her prepared statement. Looked up, saw Tearjerker. He nodded encouragement. She began. Told her story, Georgetown graduate, successful career, bright future, then pregnancy, termination, breakdown, hospitalization, 3 weeks inpatient, 3 years of medication and therapy, the privilege of affording treatment, the knowledge that millions couldn't. I take 3 medications daily. I see a therapist twice a week. Without coverage expansion, I would be one of millions rationing pills, skipping therapy, suffering in silence. Her voice broke, but she continued. Mental health care isn't luxury. It's survival. This expansion makes survival accessible. When she finished, silence filled the room. Then applause from the gallery, from some committee members. Tearjerker was crying, so proud he could barely breathe. 3 months later, November. Jane Rose and Tearjerker in Senator Williams' office watching C-SPAN. Mental health coverage. Expansion Act final vote. Holding hands, barely breathing. The votes came in, 218 to 217. It passed. The office erupted. Jane Rose collapsed in her chair crying. Tearjerker pulled her up, held her. You did it. We did it. Senator Williams hugged her. This is your legacy, Jane Rose. Millions of people will get help because you had courage to tell your story. December 31st, New Year's Eve. Jane Rose's apartment. She and Tearjerker cooking dinner together. Easy, comfortable. He'd been taking photos again, small projects, rebuilding slowly. She was thriving at Senator Williams's office, already working on next healthcare initiative, both in therapy, separately and together, couples counseling, still on medication, still managing struggles, but together. Lovies, we're almost at the end of Jane Rose and Tearjerker's impossible journey. But before we close this chapter, I need you to do something for me. If this story moved you, if you felt every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of choosing courage over comfort, hit that like button right now. And lovies, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We're serving you tearjerkers, heartbreakers, and game changers between two worlds, beyond all borders, and you deserve to be part of this family. Comment below and tell me, have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and telling the truth? Have you ever lost everything and had to rebuild from nothing? Your stories matter to us. And lovies, if this hit you in the soul, share it with someone who needs to know that broken doesn't mean unlovable, that medication doesn't make you weak, and that second chances are real if you're brave enough to fight for them. Now let's finish this story and see how two imperfect people chose love anyway. As midnight approached, they stood on her balcony overlooking DC. Last year, we were perfect strangers meeting at a restaurant, she said. This year, we're imperfect lovers who chose each other anyway. Do you regret it? Everything that happened? He thought honestly. I regret the pain, but not us. All of it led here. To what? To you fighting for millions. To me learning I'm more than my trauma. To us loving each other with eyes open. Midnight struck, fireworks over the monuments. They kissed. Not perfect, but real. Two broken people who'd shared the wrong secret and discovered it was exactly the right one after all.